everybody, and welcome back to the Citizen Sit Down. If you have missed any of our Sunday services, then you can still watch them on our YouTube channel. So make sure you catch up before you listen to us dive deeper into those talks. But I hope you enjoy.
Hello, Bree.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for welcoming me.
Sitters.
Sitters, the Citizen. For those of you who don't know, we have officially named our tribe. Some people have, like the leadership lean-in has the leaners. The Transformation Nation is a thing.
Yep.
Well, the Citizen Sit Down has the sitters. So that's our vibe. We're the sitters.
Yeah.
Because you sit down for the most important moments of your life, I think. Don't you stand for them? But you do. Because if you think about it, you're at a wedding, we sit and then we stand. So you have to sit before you stand. Come on. That'll preach. So anyway, welcome sitters. It's great.
Welcome.
Come on.
Great to be here.
Great. Good chat. Good intro.
Well, we're going to dive deeper into the last 2 weeks.
Yes, we are.
So my talk on David and Bathsheba, and Mark's talk this week on David and Saul.
Oh, what did you talk about? David and Bathsheba. That sounds good.
Well, Ryan, funnily enough. I just wanted to dive deeper into something that I touched on, talking about how God brings beauty from difficult situations. But I'd love us to talk into, well, how do I have hope if I haven't seen that happen yet? And I guess, like, in the waiting, how do I have hope that God will bring beauty from that situation?
That's really good, isn't it? What do you think? You gave the talk.
I'm asking you.
I mean, I think that's faith, isn't it? That's just what faith is. It's trusting in his promises, trusting that he is good all the time, even when we can't see it. There's this, I think I was talking about before, but this verse in Lamentations, which is what I got this tattoo on of the arrows, which was, he's obviously lamenting. But there's this sense that actually so much rubbish had happened, so many bad things, and they're at the end of themselves. And there's this line, "Oh, you shot me in the stomach with arrows from your quiver." That sense of like, that's sickening, gut-wrenching, feeling of the butterflies in your stomach, and then he kind of vents and laments, but then in the next line it's like, "Oh, but I know you're good, and so I'll keep my trust in you. I'll put my trust in you. I'll cling on to that hope." And I think sometimes hope is literally clinging on. Sometimes does feel like you're just literally clinging on to hope. It feels like you're just really hoping. Sometimes it feels like it has to be better. Sometimes you're like, "Oh, it literally just has to be better, otherwise I just don't know what's going to happen." And so we just cling on to it. But I think the Bible teaches us that God is good all the time. And I think that there is a difference between God doing something that is good and God doing something that we expect. And so I think we just need, and that's part of the trust as well. It's trusting, he's good. Good will come of this because God is good. And so all we can do is welcome him into it, trusting that he will make good of it. But it might not be how we expect. It might not be what we expect. And even when he does his good thing, we might not immediately see it as good. Because he is beyond our comprehension. And so I think there's a big question to start on. But it's I think it is. It's in the waiting. We need to be still and wait and trust that he is God, not us. He's in control, not us. And actually, I think so many of the issues in our lives come from us trying to take control and trying to cling on to control.
Yeah.
When actually we need to just let go and should have let go earlier, and it wouldn't have caused us as much heartache or anxiety or whatever. But it is the hope is in the knowledge that he is good no matter what, and also that even if we don't see it in this life, he is good. and the victory is his, and it's also trying to have a heavenly perspective, which is really hard, isn't it? When you're facing sickness, when you're facing a a terminal diagnosis, when you're facing, it's like, I mean, he is good, and his promises are good and they're true, but I might not even see it in this life, and it's brutal and it's hard, but we are living in a broken world. The world is broken, and the promise is one of victory, one of hope, and it's one of us will die. And so if our hope is that we won't, that's difficult, because we will. But our hope is in the resurrection, and that death has been defeated. But yeah, things just seem unfair, and they are unfair, and horrible things are happening in the world. But we get to trust, and we get to know that he is good, even if we can't see that. So it's just faith. It's clinging on, and it's just trying to stay in step with that.
Yeah, that's why I love that visual of the clay pot so much. I just find it so helpful that all you have to do is kind of show up as those broken pieces. Yeah. And then God will literally do the rest, and you don't have to see how he's going to do it, because only he knows how. But yeah, he will put that back together, and then shine his glory will shine through.
You smashed some pots up on stage, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was fun. If you haven't seen that, you should see it.
Doing it so close to all those instruments. But
I think you nearly killed someone else as well. Little shards of pottery just hitting me.
Well, be remembered for one reason or another, I guess.
Definitely be remembered.
But yeah, I'd love us to talk into somebody in my Alpha group this week said something really interesting about forgiveness. And they said it can be quite easy to forgive, but more difficult to forget. And I thought it was really interesting, because there are definitely times where I've been like, oh yeah, I forgive that person, but there's still the pain of what they've done, or I'm still facing like repercussions of what they've done. So yeah, I think I'd just love us to talk into like, what advice would you give in terms of like forgetting rather than forgiving?
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? Forgetting and forgiving. It's something that actually is mentioned on Alpha, which is that, and I think we mentioned last night, was that there's a difference between justification and sanctification. Justification is immediate. You know, that's it, like we spoke about in King David, when David, you spoke about this thing. David did something, and it was like, you're forgiven. That's done. Yeah. That's that. All David had to do was say, I've sinned, and then immediately, I think it was Nathan was like, yeah, it's sorted. It's fine. It's forgiven. That's justification. You're justified. Jesus has justified you. The cross has justified you. It is sorted. Your sin is forgiven. Sanctification is recognizing that there's a process though, and that there are repercussions, like earthly repercussions, and there were for David. You know, and what you were talking about, David, like Nathan was, God's forgiven you. Like that's happened. You've sinned. You've admitted it. You've messed up. You've admitted it. God's forgiven you. That's done. But the repercussions for David were ones that meant that, he wasn't able to build the temple. So actually it was God was originally called David to build the temple, and it was like, you're not going to do this and that. You can't do that. And so Solomon did it. Also the earthly repercussions in the thing that came out of that relationship was that they ended up having, their baby died. And it was a horrible thing. It was a repercussion. I'm not saying that is a consequence of sin, but it was an earthly consequence of something that had happened. And so it's like, I think there are earthly consequences to our actions. Like, if I don't know, if I kick you, you might forgive me, but you might still get a bruise. It's that happens. Yeah. I think the thing is that sanctification is a process. It takes time. And I think, but there is serious purpose in our processes, and I think that in this kind of Joe Wicks Lean in 15 generation, where we can just basically, we just want everything now, and a lot of pop culture, a lot of Amazon, everything is all about giving us everything we want immediately. I think we just lose the process. We lose that there is power and purpose and like in the process. And I think that part of that for us is, if we make mistakes, we have to learn from them, and they also have to shape us. Our scars, like you were saying about our scars are, they're not a weakness, they're a witness. That'll preach. You didn't say that, but I'll say it. Come on, our scars aren't. They're a witness. Come on, but it's they are, and they tell the story of your testimony. This is how far I've come. This is what God has done in my life. And I think that's what is so powerful about these testimonies. When you hear like Shane Taylor on Alpha, talking about who he was and that message, and that is what makes this story even more powerful. The way that God has completely transformed his life and also brought redemption. And actually for David, it was Solomon. It was a son that came out of that relationship with Bathsheba who ended up building the temple and ended up being like the wisest king and potentially an even better king than David. And so that's redemption. There is still redemption in it. But we just need to be willing to go through the process and let God teach us and shape us in it, and bring purpose to our pain, and bring purpose to, we're going to screw up, and but it's not even just about screwing up. It's about things will happen to us. We'll have heartbreak. We will have pain. We'll be in pandemics. We'll have all these things. And I think actually what we could do is think, okay, great, June 21st, hopefully there'll be very limited restrictions, if any. Let's crack on and let's forget about the last year. I thought, well, yeah, you could do that. But also your body, your mind, everything hasn't forgotten about the last year. It's there. The last year has affected you. And so I think it's recognizing, what are we learning from this year? It's the process. It's we spoke before about how waiting time isn't wasted time. And so let's it's not isolation, it's incubation. It's what can we learn in it? What can we take from it? And I think we're so quick to try and just get over things, get past things, move on, and not like linger in them and dwell in them. But like I love it. Not too long ago, there was much culture and society just had, you would have a period of mourning. Like a widow would wear all black and it would be, they are in a stage of mourning, and it was like much more of a thing. Whereas now it's like, you've lost someone. Oh no, I'm fine. Like, don't even think. It's like, that's not healthy. We need to recognize that there's process. Pain needs process. And if we let it have that, then that will bring purpose and a positive outcome. I think it's the same with all of these things. But yeah, I don't even remember your question. So it's kind of left me talking about something else.
Just on that though, do you think forgetting is part of the forgiveness process, or do you think they're completely separate things?
I don't know. I think forgetting, it's hard, isn't it? Forgetting. I mean, I don't think you can intentionally forget anything. Can you? Like, I can't make myself forget something. And I think as well as that, I think like forgiveness isn't, I've forgotten what you've done. I think it's like, and also I think it's I accept you for what you've done. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think there's way more beauty in that. I don't want it swept under the rug. And I think part of the beauty is, you know what, theologically, maybe God does forget everything we've done. But I think it shows much more about his love if he loves us anyway, in spite of what we've done, despite what we've done. Because that just shows how much he loves us. Yeah, you've done this, but I love you anyway. It doesn't affect how much I love you. Yeah, you've done that. It doesn't affect how much I love you. I know that about you, and I accept you. And I think so many of us are like, we want to, and we think we need to hide who we are or what we've done or them thoughts that we have or them. And it's like, no, he loves you anyway. He knows about them. You don't have to hide them, and he loves you anyway. And I think forgetting, I don't even really know what that means, but I think
Strengthens the power of forgiveness, though, I guess, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. I accept you anyway. I
Yeah.
know. I think that's what makes forgiveness even more powerful, because actually you get to accept them for who they actually are. And I guess that's what forgiveness is actually about. It's a gift.
So true.
Yeah.
I just want to move on quickly to Mark's talk on David and Saul. And something he spoke about quite often was like, what are you chasing? What are you going after? And I just want to ask you, why do you think it's important to assess what we're chasing and how it affects us?
Yeah, it was good. It was a good talk. I think the thing about King Saul was that it's good because he was chasing power, but it's that thing of when you have something, you're still chasing it, and you don't realize you have it. And I remember, for example, with, when I was younger, you have relationships, and you what you're kind of chasing is that family life. You want to get married, you want to have kids, you want to have a golden retriever. You want to. Well, that for me, that was what I wanted. And then when you're in it, you're like, oh, great. Now what? Now it's like, oh my gosh. Like, firstly, the risk for us is that we forget how to be content with what we have. And I think part of that is recognizing that what we have is a gift. Every single thing, which I spoke a little while about that song Miracles, like a million different miracles, whatever it's called, Million Little Miracles in my old church basement album. But it's I just love it because actually it just reminded me that, like, oh, the fact that I am breathing right now is a miracle. The fact that I am who I am is a miracle. The fact that my eyes are this color, that all of this is a miracle. Every individual is a miracle. Every little thing that makes them is a miracle. And when you think like that, you're like, oh, the fact that I am here right this second is a gift. And then you start thinking about all the other things you have in your life, like the people in your life, your family, and it's like, wow, like we are so blessed and gifted. And it makes it a bit harder to start to go back to the, I need this, because you're like, wow, look what I've got. It's not saying you won't, but it's helpful to reflect on that. But I think it's just exhausting, and there's like that thing that I think it was Freddie Mercury said or something. It was an Alpha quote, but that like, or Jim Carrey said it. I wish everyone would get rich and famous to get everything they ever wanted, so that they would realize that it's not what satisfies them. Yeah. And it's like, give everyone everything they've ever wanted, and they will realize that it's not what they need. Yeah. And I love that. There's that image in Bruce Almighty with Jim Carrey where he becomes God for a day, and so he everyone's praying. He just goes, great, let's say yes to everything. Give everyone what they want, and then all of a sudden, no one has any money because everyone's won the lottery, and everyone gets like 50p, and then 1 minute it's raining, next minute it's blazing sunshine, next minute, and it's like, oh, well, you can't have everything, and it's like, and it just doesn't work like that. And so I just really like that. But I think, so having that sense of what are you chasing? I think it's just to be chasing things that are earthly, that are man-made. They're just not helpful. Power, anything like that, it's just not helpful. We should be chasing God. That's basically the idea. You should just be chasing, trying to be closer to him, and then he will bless you with everything he wants to give you and need. But the other side of that, I think, is with King David and with Saul particularly, was that he wasn't just chasing, he was more clinging on to it. And so it's like he wasn't ready to let anything go. And I think part of that is recognizing, like what we spoke about before, like that every good and perfect gift comes from God. Everything that Saul had came from God. Yeah. And that's like where we're like with money. We're so good, keen to cling on to our money, to our finances, to our whatever, because we forget that it comes from him, and so therefore he can just easily give it back to us and replenish. And actually, it was a lot of that. It was clinging onto his power which made him lose it. Whereas David, came from nothing, was a shepherd boy, he just had no expectations. It was like, God, I'll do what you want. Moved with him, then came back, like, and he just basically kept getting more and more and more, because he was just like, yeah, here I am, send me. And then he was on his knees before God as a king. He was, as soon as when he messed up, he was willing to admit it. And he was like, well, and even when God said to him, okay, you're forgiven, but the consequences are you're not going to build the temple. He was like, great. Well, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise everything that I can to enable Solomon to build the best temple you've ever seen. And so like that was his response. And that is why David was such a great king. And that is why God entrusted him with it. And I think for Saul, he was so scared to lose his power. He's insecure. And I think our security just has to come from God. We have to look for it in him, knowing who he sees us, knowing that actually each and every one of us is a miracle. You are a miracle. That is your biggest gift. Your breath, your family, everything that you have. And then everything else is a bonus. Recognizing that, living in that, standing in that, and then anything extra, you can be like, wow, what a bonus. But then also, you can hopefully hold it lighter and be willing to let it go when God says, let it go now. And I think that is the challenge, is if God says to you right now, let that thing go, would you? And I just think, if God said to me today, hey, well done, time to leave Wales, time to be done now, go and do something else, would I? If God said to you, okay, quit your job, you're done, would you? If God says to you, end that relationship, would you? If God says to you, give this away, would you? If he says, sell your house, would you? And that I think is the challenge that everyone sees with Abraham and Isaac. When God says, give him to me, like, will you? And everyone's like, you can't do that. And I think, or if you actually look at the idea and the moral of the story, is actually what Abraham was doing was trusting God. He was trusting God with his son. And as he always does, God gave him back to him. But he needs to know that you're going to trust him with all these things. And that's where Saul went wrong. He just clung on to it. He wanted power. That's what he wanted more than God. So,
Do you think there's anything wrong with having obsessions, though? Like, because Zach and I are obsessed with This Is Us, for example.
Yeah, I love This Is Us. It's so good.
So obsessions like that, or like sweet treats and things like that, are those obsessions that we need to get rid of or get over? Or is it just in terms of like what we're chasing in terms of like power or status or whatever?
Well, no, obsession is very good, is it? An obsession.
Yeah.
Like if you're obsessed with sweet treats, the result of that is diabetes. Like it's not a good result. Do you know what I mean? Like it just that's why moderation is self-control. Like and also it's one of the fruits of the spirit. So self-control is, and I think that's the other thing with all of this stuff is it's like, okay, great. Like, well, how am I going to do that? Like, how am I going to, and also what we do is we get into fad diets. Great. If I'm not going to get lean in 15, then I can't do it. And it's like, okay. But once again, it comes back around to the process. We are not willing to get in on the process. Like it takes time to get toned and tanned, and it takes time to, to move on from things or to, but I think, but then even them are obsessions, like losing weight. If you're overweight dangerously, then you should lose some weight. But then people can get obsessed with it and then become obsessed. And Instagram and things, we spoke about that before, about how, the culture of looking a certain way, being a certain size, like that's not helpful, and that is dangerous as well. Everything in moderation, and it's about holding things lightly, holding everything lightly. And that's why the thing with money, our obsession is money. It's money, it's power, it's status, and that's what the Bible warns us against. That's why the Bible talks so much about money, because of its obsessive quality and because it gives us the appearance of power. And I think that is the thing to be fearful of, is because before you know it, you become, that becomes your God. It's an idol. These things are called idols. Like just because it's not a statue of another deity doesn't make it any less a God in your life. God wants to be the one that you are obsessed with only. He's a jealous God, like we spoke about before, like jealous in the way that is holy, not in the weird way that I I get jealous, but like he's jealous in a holy, righteous way. He wants your obsession to be about him, to be about getting close to him, and anything else that you're obsessed with will just become dangerous for you, whether it's sweets. You know, if you get obsessed with sun tanning, that's not good for you. But, you know, vitamin D is good for you. If you're obsessed with, like, you know, going to the gym and exercise is good for you. But actually, if you overdo it, if you're running all the time, that could be quite dangerous for you. Really, really bad for your knees. In fact, you know, everything, if you do it too much, has the opposite effect. It has a negative effect on you. People, being obsessed with people, it ends up bringing insecurities. You end up putting your faith, your trust in people who are people and will let you down. Like, you know, we need to hold everything lightly. And actually, it's in holding things lightly where I think also will give us the power to forgive people. You know, forgiveness comes from a place of realizing that we all have faults, we all mess up, and actually, whereas if you're obsessed with someone, you put high levels of expectation on them, and you kind of, and so when they let you down, it's even worse. It's like, well, no, like they're human and they're gonna mess up, and so moderation, everything in moderation. Sweet treats, This Is Us. I mean, also, like, if you have them days when you binge watch telly for too long, you just feel a bit rubbish in that day. I'm like, like, but I do love This Is Us though. It's absolutely, it's brilliant.
It's so good.
Yeah, are you up to date?
Yeah, we've just started season 5.
Have you? Oh, it's all COVID-y. It's great.
We've
got a mask. Is so good. It's so good. Yeah.
Well, Mark spoke a bit about his obsession with like motorbikes, and how he kind of overcame that and then became like centered around God. And I would just love us to finish by talking about how we practically overcome like what we're chasing and center ourselves around God.
I think we just change what we're chasing. We just try and chase God more. I don't think you can consciously, you know, when because I still love stuff. I do it all the time. Literally, I love when we were gonna have Noah, and when we had our golden retriever, we were like, right, we need a bigger car. So I loved it. I was like, right, I want to get an SUV. This is it. It's not, you know, I was like, this is my chance to get that, like, you know. So I love looking up a car. And then as soon as I got it, I was like, yeah, I love it for a bit. And then all of a sudden I saw another car and I was like, ooh, I like that one. Ooh, I like that one. And I'm coveting cars all the time. Yeah. And I love my car. But I think, you know, some of that's normal, but you can just get a bit obsessed with things. I think the main thing is to just try and be obsessed with Jesus more. Try and spend more time with him. Do the Bible in 1 year. Try and bring him into your life more. I think consciously trying to overcome an obsession. I mean, firstly, if it's an addiction and if there are certain things like drugs or something, like, you need to get help. You need to seek the proper help for that. And I think there's addictions in people's lives that most addictions, I think all addictions basically need help getting over. But if it's something like that you are a bit obsessed with, I think the answer just is try and focus more on Jesus. Try and put things in your life that give you time for that. I think I used to be, because of the way I am, I'm quite extroverted. I was always like, I'm not a morning person, quite a night owl. You know, I was like, oh, how am I ever going to find a routine that sees me like spending the morning? You hear all these people that like, you know, I spend 2 hours first thing in the morning with Jesus, and I'm like, and I'm like, oh, cool, mate. Like, I just want to sleep. Like, I can't even get up. I'm normally like rushing to get out the door. So, and I never could really relate to them people. But actually, since having Noah and everything, it's forced me to get up earlier and do things like that. But I love it. I now, like, every morning now I walk around Rove Park and I have the Bible in 1 year and I'm walking Ralph, and it's life-giving for me. But now I could never go back. I could never not do that. And if I ever miss that, my day is just set up wrong. It's like food. It's like breakfast now. And so I think it is just putting more things in your day, and that spiritual muscle just grows and grows and grows. So now even that's not enough to sustain me. So I need to add something else to it. So I do the Bible 1 year. And then and I've got some like a routine around prayer, but then also I have another podcast that I listen to give me some more input, and it's just growing and growing and growing. That muscle grows and grows and grows. And there's other things I do, but you got to start small. Start with the Bible and 1 year express. It's like 10 minutes, and anyone can do 10 minutes in the morning, but just try and focus on that 10 minutes. Either go for a walk or just sit down and have a coffee with it. Like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And just watch it, and then that will grow and grow and grow. I think it's less about focusing on overcoming a specific obsession and more about obsessing over the right thing, the right person, which is Jesus.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you soon.